And the most important thing they taught me is there's always a cause of the epilepsy, of the seizures. Whether you find it or not is another thing, but I decided at that moment that that was going to be what I was going to fight for. I was going to fight to find the cause. Because the cause can change the course of treatment. It can change, ultimately, if I get him on the right treatment, it could change his future. I was fighting for every little brain cell that I could salvage at this point. Our road to finding a cause wasn't smooth. We ruled out all the main things. MRIs didn't show any physical damage. He hadn't had an accident. He didn't have a brain bleed. So the next most common cause is genetic. Our first two neurologists never even suggested genetic testing. Luckily, our third neurologist agreed and set us up immediately with a geneticist. He ran 3 single gene tests, each taking months to come back. Each were negative. It was a whole year wasted. I was frustrated, so I again turned to my support group, and I learned that GeneDx, which is a very large leading genetic testing company, was having a special on their brand new early infantile comprehensive epilepsy panel. At the time, it included 53 genes that were most commonly causes of early onset epilepsy. And the special was, no matter what insurance paid, there was no more than a $100 charge for the patient. And I was like, we can do this, let's do it. I demanded it be drawn, and our geneticist reluctantly agreed. 6 months later, we got the call that shed light on the why our baby was so sick. The panel came back showing a change in the SCN2A gene. I was like, wait, SCN2, what? Can you slow down so I can write this down? It was just a bunch of letters and numbers. It meant nothing to me. That's right. We were told a lot of things then, none of which hold true today. Like, we're the only case in the world of SCN2A. NYU had no other cases. They couldn't connect me with another mom. It's so rare, and because they're so rare, there's no research, and because there's no research, there'll never be a cure. They told me it was a tough break and to prepare for the worst, that Ben will never, ever talk. He'll never learn. He will always have seizures, and he probably won't make it through childhood. The truth is, they had really no idea what this diagnosis meant, and I just wish they'd said that. You know, we don't know. We don't know what SCN2A means. We don't know enough about it. I wish that they had told us that rather than preparing for the future. But let's fast forward to today. A lot of you saw Ben walking around. He's adorable. He looks happy and healthy, right? Like a typical little boy. But he's not well. He suffers from an array of medical and developmental diagnoses because of his SCN2A disorder. He continues to have seizures, although they're much more controlled than they were. He's in diapers at age 9. He has a feeding tube. He gets 90% of his nutrition through a tube. He's legally blind. His development is that around scattered skills, but in between 6 and 18 months. He's completely nonverbal, unable to communicate any of his wants and needs. He's completely unaware of danger. He needs 24/7 supervision. He has scoliosis. He suffers from discomfort and fatigue from walking too long. He needs a wheelchair. Our life now revolves around a disease. And when we're faced with the choice of acceptance or action, we chose action. Now, I don't want you to get me wrong. It goes without saying that we accept our son and we love him just the way he is today. But we're fighting for a better future for him still, every single day. I mean, after all, he went from a walking, babbling 1-year-old to a 20-pound newborn and has since relearned how to hold up his head, how to crawl and walk for a second time. He endures 8 hours of intense therapies and instruction a day. He's resilient and stronger than me in every single way. The least we can do is fight for him. So I realized that all that fighting that we just had to do just to get the diagnosis set us up for the next thing, which is fighting to find a cure for this disease. Once again, I found myself turning to social media. It had been a lifeline before, and I was going to harness that power again. I started a Facebook support group, just very simple, anybody can do that. I wasn't special. I just wanted to find another mom to talk to find out what my son's future was going to look like. Just didn't believe that we were the only cases of SCN2A in the world. And I'll never forget the day that the first family joined my group. We stayed up all night messaging each other back and forth. We were best friends by the morning. We compared every single detail of our children. When you're thrust into the world of rare disease, babies having seizures and dying, lost futures, you cling on to what you can to stay afloat. And for me, that's been the relationships I've built with these other moms, the people that I've met along the way. Most of them I've never even met in person, they're just online, but they have become my family. Within 6 months, we had 50 families in the group from around the world. Our neurologist was shocked by how many patients existed, and the tables turned pretty quickly. We were now educating her about SCN2A. A year later, along with 2 other parents, we started the work to take the Facebook support group to the next level, and the family's SCN2A Foundation was born. We received our official 501c3 status, and we began fundraising. And as you can see from this slide, Ben is not the only one. There are a lot. There's a couple thousand today, with hundreds and hundreds more being diagnosed every year. And I'm not the only parent that shows action. We've become the sum. And let me tell you, there's power in numbers. Many families are now being referred to our foundation at diagnosis by their geneticists and their neurologists. And we met our first goal pretty quickly. That was to get SCN2A on the map. The foundation's vision is really clear and simple. It's to find a cure for SCN2A related disorders. The foundation funds critical research to find new treatments for our children. And it sounds super important, right? It is. Without research, there won't be a cure. We won't have any hope for our children's future. But it's not the most important thing we do. The foundation prides itself on being stewards to our community. The families with children suffering from SCN2A disorders are barely keeping afloat. And I speak from experience. The foundation has programs to support these families on an everyday basis, such as the Birthday Club. This exclusive club sends out a social media shout out on the child's birthday, and they also send a card and a little gift in the mail. We just make sure every child is celebrated. We also have a crisis and grief support team that sends a child suffering in the hospital a comfort gift, and their mom who's sitting vigil, a coupon for a real coffee. And if you've ever been hospitalized, which sounds like most of you have, you know what a real coffee is when you're in the hospital. It's a big difference. That team also coordinates the support for families going through the unimaginable, which is when the children don't make it. In addition to support, we empower families and professionals with education. Oftentimes we, the parents, have to be the experts in our children's care because they've never even heard of SCN2A. We're changing that. The foundation hosts a biennial international conference bringing together families and professionals from around the world for a 2-day educational event. This meeting is often the first time that a family has met another person going through the same thing that their child has. This in-person support where everyone gets it just creates a safe place for them to share and be understood. The professionals look forward to the conference as well. It presents them with an opportunity to see the real-life version of what they're studying in their lab. So the parents leave with their heads full of education and information and their hearts full of hope that there's going to be a cure for their kid. And the professionals go back to their labs and work even harder because they just met these kids, and they're like, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna cure this. We've accomplished a lot over the last 6 years through the foundation. This year alone, I'm not going to bore you with all the details of the timeline of everything we've ever done, but this year alone, we've awarded over $400,000 in research grants. We've sponsored 19 domestic and 5 international family travel assistants to attend our conference. We've sent out 110 birthday cards so far. We've provided dozens of comfort gifts to hospitalized kids, and we've even opened up a patient assistance grant to help families struggling with the extraordinary costs that come along with this disorder. So with more patients comes more data. An international database of SCN2A patients that the foundation started years ago has made us an attractive target for research and drug discovery. With more data, treating clinicians can now define this disease, and they can predict the outcomes. This way, when a patient is newly diagnosed, they're not going to get what I got, that you're the only one and there's nothing we can do. They're gonna get, well, here's what it looks like. Here's the spectrum of SCN2A, and here's where your child falls. Here's what you can expect, and they also set them up with a specialist that they need right away. So Ben doesn't just see a neurologist. He sees 12 specialists. GI, ophthalmology, kidneys, everything. Not only do we now understand what the disease looks like in people, we understand what it looks like on a cell level. So the scientists are actually working on medicine that is actually going to work on the actual gene. It's not just another epilepsy drug, but an actual cure. It's going to fix the core problem. We've learned a lot since D-Day, the term that I use when I refer to the day that we got the diagnosis. We know that SCN2A remains really, really significantly underdiagnosed. We're predicting hundreds of more cases every year. Another important discovery is the vast spectrum of phenotypes in SCN2A. We once thought that SCN2A meant epilepsy. However, as genetic testing becomes more accessible, patients with no epilepsy are joining our group. And we're learning that SCN2A can be the cause of their autism with no epilepsy, intellectual disability, ataxia, and other issues. Our community became the many, as it grew to include not only the patients and their families, but educators, therapists, clinicians, and researchers, all invested in supporting our mission to find a cure. The foundation helps to bridge the gap between science and real life, how the research translates into treatments and a cure. Researchers and industry, you guys bring us hope. And in turn, we hope that we can inspire you with the stories of our children so that you can go back and cure it. We're so honored of these relationships that we've built along the way, because it's going to take the power of the many to cure the one. I know I just sped right through that whole thing, but I'd like to open it up to questions. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Lee? Go ahead.
Have you found anybody locally to talk to, or are the only people that you're talking to online?
We now have families in every single state and all over the world. Like locally, I think we were talking about this on the way here. I think the closest is about an hour for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I've met many of them now.
Oh,
It's really great. It's very heartwarming to meet another child with the same disorder and the family.
I have a question over there.
I was trying to see on the slide what SCN2A means. I don't know if you said it or
No, you're right, and that I think is on your evaluation.
not. Sodium-
Did you learn anything about what SCN2A actually is? Which I didn't really go into because I didn't know if you'd be interested, so I'm really glad that you are, because I really love talking about it. SCN2A is a sodium channel.
Okay.
It's a gene. It's located on chromosome 2. When changed, it can cause a whole spectrum of disorders. It depends on where the change is in the gene, the symptoms you're gonna have. So, for instance, my son has a change in his gene right in the middle. So his symptoms are very different than somebody that might have a change early on in the gene or later on in the gene. Sodium, you need sodium to go in and out of your sodium channels in order for neurons to communicate with each other effectively. When it's broken and the gates are either open too much and there's too much sodium going in and out, it causes this hyperexcitability, which causes the seizures. Or they're stuck and there's not enough sodium going in and out, which causes the autism. It's super complicated, and I had to get what is called Genetics for Dummies to read, just to be able to have a conversation with my son's doctor about this.
So the other thing is, has anybody approached Congress to help with this and other forms of, you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
have people going in front of Congress for other conditions.
You're right.
So what about this?
Yeah, so we are working on putting together a team to lobby. Some of the bigger diseases do that, and it's very, very time consuming and intimidating. But you're right, it's a huge need. Right now, the funding that is coming for the research is coming from NIH. It's coming from us, fundraising, having lemonade stands or whatever we do to raise the money to pay the researchers to look at it. But what they're finding is that this is teaching them a lot of clues that they need to treat epilepsy in general and to treat autism in general. So it's helping the bigger communities. So I think that we're going to need more funding, and I think it's a good idea to hit up Congress. Yin? Thank you.
I've seen in previous, seminars that it's the DNA. Sometimes it has a hole, like you were talking about the hole. Sometimes it's solid, and then sometimes it's like layered. What is that? And more importantly, where is the connection between Alzheimer's, autism, epilepsy, and Parkinson's disease? Somewhere between the four diseases, people, there is a connection. We need to find the commonality, the common connection between all those four illnesses. Then we can find the individual cures for the rest of those things. Think about that, people.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. We talked about that earlier. I think that we should definitely push forward with that one. Yeah, I don't really have the answer on the DNA.
No, because I've seen another one, because there's something about looking at it from top and then
You're
sideways.
absolutely right. Sometimes it looks tangled and yeah.
And then it says it has like a hole in the middle, and then sometimes it's solid, and then but when you look like layers of dirt, he says then that's where they have gaps at.
It's amazing how one little change in one little gene can cause such a big
You
problem.
probably have to get somebody that knows, is more
More.
experienced and about DNA.
You remember my
everything.
fully disclosed
Oh,
statement.
Yeah, like that's even above my wheelhouse. Like if she knew, I would be like, hey, all for it, you can explain it, but that's even above my wheelhouse, so. And I'm not even up there, like, I know my limit, and then I'm like, that's why we bring the doctors in.
So do you find, what types of seizures does this produce? And also from what I'm understanding, what you were saying is the SCN2A gene, it produces, the epilepsy is a byproduct. And you also have met patients with this that have just autism with no epilepsy. And also, do you find that there's a certain medication, specific medication, that is helping the people that you've met with seizures?
Yes.
And what medication would that be?
Fantastic question. That is great. Thank you so much for asking that. Yes, so in the beginning, we thought that SCN2A meant epilepsy, early onset epilepsy. That's because those were the only people that were being diagnosed. We just, in the last couple of years, realized that you can have SCN2A with no epilepsy. So the scientists have studied this gene, and they now understand the phenotype, genotype. So what it looks like in people compared to what the gene is showing. So the actual variant on the gene. It depends on the variant. So we have the kids with really early onset epilepsy. Those kids most likely will start having seizures at birth. A lot of the moms actually say that they felt seizures in utero. So those kids are seizing immediately. Those kids have, on a cellular level, they have a gain of function. So they're too much sodium going in and out, causing the hyperexcitability. Those kids need sodium channel blockers. Those work best. Right now, the best sodium channel blocker available is phenytoin, Dilantin. It's a horrible drug to be on. It's very, very difficult to keep your levels straight, and you can get toxic and they can go low. It's all over the map. And can you imagine being a little baby, a 1-year-old, like a 1-day-old baby on this medication? It's terrible. Their teeth don't come in, their gums get so thick that they don't. We have 10-year-olds in our group that have never had a tooth come in because the phenytoin has made their gums so thick, and it causes so much pain. That's the best drug that we have right now. But there are several in the pipeline already that are working on better sodium channel blockers. for the gain of function SCN2A kids. And then you've got the other side of the spectrum. Those kids have, on a cellular level, a loss of function. It's completely opposite. And those kids cannot take sodium channel blockers. They don't work. They actually make things worse for those kids. So same gene, two different diseases. Those kids do better on, it really depends, but what we've noticed is mostly Keppra. Keppra, there really is no specific one that's perfect for them. Depakote works well for the loss of function kids with epilepsy. 50% of our loss of function kids go on to having later onset epilepsy. So 3 months and above. When I say later onset, I'm talking 3 months and above. Ben didn't have his first seizure till 13 months. So you would automatically assume, knowing all that I just told you, that he's a loss of function, that he's on that side of the spectrum. But he's not. There are outliers to everything. And of course, my son is one. He doesn't fit neatly into the gain of function or the loss of function, so neither one of those drugs worked for him. He is an outlier, and he's gonna need a very specific treatment. He's not gonna qualify for any of these treatments that are in the pipeline right now for either gain or loss of function. I hope I answered.
Yeah, another question. Are you recommending any of these patients follow with neuropsychiatric testing as ongoing?
Yeah, almost all of them do see a neuropsychiatrist or psychologist for developmental testing. They almost all have severe developmental problems. I'd say there might be a handful of kids in our entire group, and we have over 700 patients in our group, that have any words at all. Most of them are completely nonverbal. It's a pretty significant impact.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Hello.
We've been told as far as the gene therapy trial, you don't need additional information or insight time-wise. We've been told sort of hospital is coming up, we don't really give any firm dates. When those might begin at different facilities, different locations, studying additional gene therapy, and what we're hearing.
Yeah, what's so exciting right now, and this family here has a child with a sodium channel mutation as well. It's different than ours. Theirs is on the SCN1A gene. We're on the SCN2A gene, but we're following in their steps because their group is bigger, it's more established, and they've done a lot more research. So we're following right behind you. So I can tell you that gene therapy for both of our genes is difficult because the gene is so big. So it's hard to fit it into a viral vector, which is what you need to get into the body, because the gene is too big for most viral vectors. So what they're doing is they're working around that by working on the RNA. So you have the gene and the protein, and then you have the protein level and the gene level. In the middle, you have the RNA, which if you work on that, it can trick the DNA into thinking it's fixed. So if working in that is where we are right now, same as you guys, with some treatments that unfortunately won't be a one and done deal. It'll be like every 3 months a spinal infusion of what's called an ASO, antisense oligonucleotide, which works on the RNA. It is a cure, but it's not a one and done. It'll be a treatment that you'll have to get every 3 months. And for our kids, that's gonna be anesthesia. It's not gonna be pretty, if they even qualify.
Just trying to follow you because obviously you know a lot about this and you're doing a great job explaining it. So there is only a CNN 1 and 2? Is that it, or does it even go?
There's more.
So what is, it's a lot for obviously your time limit, but what's the differences, the general differences between like 1, 2, 3, 4, however far it goes up? Are you able to?
Yeah,
If
so
not, don't worry.
I know a lot about SCN1A, obviously, because that's Dravet syndrome.
Yeah.
And when Ben was diagnosed with SCN2A,
Yeah.
they had never seen anybody with SCN2A, so they told me it was Dravet. They said it's the same, just
So sometimes you
yeah.
get kind of
So
all.
those two were mixed up for quite a while, and so we finally untangled that, and we finally got the message out that SCN2A does not equal Dravet syndrome. It's actually dangerous to do that because
Yeah.
they cannot take sodium channel blockers, and our kids need sodium channel blockers, so it's like actually opposite. And so that's SCN1A, we're SCN2A, The phenotypes are very similar in 1A and 2A. The difference is that the 1A kids, they have pretty, very easy to identify clinical phenotype. So they usually start having seizures around 8 months. They usually have a febrile seizure to start with. They have refractory tonic-clonic seizures. In our kids, it's just all over the map. It's more of a mess.
No, that's, I mean, I would think too, like, can be very frustrating too if you get put in that situation and they just say, oh, it's Dravet, and then you're not finding out till later, you know, there's a lot of things that could have happened in between
Yes.
there. I'm thank you so much for explaining that, because I think too, when you first put it out there, I think, okay, Dravet, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thank you for.
Well, when they told us he had Dravet syndrome, we joined their support group online. And I just kept saying, Ben is not like this. He's not like these kids. He has infantile spasms. None of the kids in the Dravet group had infantile spasms. He has cortical visual impairment. They don't have cortical visual impairment. This is different, and that's why I started the group.
Yeah.
Because I knew it was different, even though we were being told something very different. You know, we were being told it was the same. We knew it wasn't.
Wow, thank you.
But to answer your question, there is an SCN 3A, 5A,
Wow.
9A. I don't know much about, the 9A is pain, the 5A is heart, the 1, 2, and 8 are seizures.
That's amazing. Does anybody else have any questions?
Thank you so much for hearing my story and listening and meeting Ben. Please come back and give him a big old Ben hug if you'd like to. It's nice to meet all of you.
Thank you.